The Uniform Commercial Code, or UCC, is a present-day international law as it pertains to banking and worldwide logistics of contract and trust law. It is better yet described as private international common law, as we will explore ahead. It is also known as the present-day Admiralty law, as relating to trade and commerce between multiple jurisdictions across the seas. To clarify why it is necessary to have a uniform commercial code has to do with differences in local jurisdictional laws, meaning every continent, country, and state therein have their own localized law within their respective jurisdictions. A jurisdiction being interpreted as an area, boundary, or entity within which specific laws are created and applied. From a perspective of simplicity, let us consider how this applies to your home environment. In your home, you may choose to observe specific rules and perhaps some cultural or religious perspectives, whereas your neighbor may have a completely different set of rules and different cultural and religious perspectives to yours, right? Thus, when both households of people enter into the common grounds outside their homes, since they are in open areas, so to speak, there must be some set of laws and principles that they all agree to be governed by to avoid too many conflicts of interest. This is the basis of the common law, or law of the land. The same principles apply to local states within a country or continent. The individual states may have their own laws and customs, but when it comes to the logistics of trade and commerce between states, a common consensus of law must be observed, agreed upon, and applied. And the same principles also apply to trade and commerce between states and countries across the seas, except in this case, this is called Admiralty law, or law of the seas. Now, in terms of a certified sovereign human being, he or she is acting within their own ordained sovereignty, jurisdiction of laws and principles, as if acting within their own authority and nationality, so to speak. And since the laws of the state and the laws of the sovereign individual cannot be commingled under any circumstance, there has to be a uniform commercial code, hence UCC, as an interfacing or corresponding body of law between both jurisdictions. Make sense? To further expound on the differences between the two, let us consider this table of distinctions. The first distinction to be made is that between public and private. Public has to do with any quasi-organization or corporation that are directly connected to the local state government. For instance, Department for Transportation, the Postal Service, Education, National Health Service, the Fire Department, the Police Department, and so forth. Whereas the private has to do with any other organization or corporation that are not directly connected to the local state government. The second distinction to be made is that between national and international. National is pertaining to that which is in the public, as just described, and therefore international is that which is in the private. Furthermore, any entity that is considered public and or national is governed by Admiralty law, or law of the seas, and any entity that is considered private and or international is governed by the common law, or law of the land. Therefore, statutes, legislations, and acts of parliament are only applicable to legal entities that are registered within the public, national, or localized realms, whereas the UCC is applicable to communications and correspondences between entities across jurisdictions, i.e. between private and public. Each localized jurisdiction has its own process of creating legal entities and the subsequent registering of legal titles to these legal entities. Thus, legal entities only exist within the public as they pertain to and somewhat misrepresent real property that exists within the private. For instance, the birth certificate is evidence of a legal title claim of a fictional legal entity seen as the all caps name, and is a misrepresentation of a real human being that exists in reality. To resolve this misrepresentation, we issue a certificate of sovereignty as the true allodial title to the natural human being. The interface between the two titles, therefore, is the Uniform Commercial Code. And likewise, a title deed is evidence of a legal title claim of a fictional legal entity as seen as the all caps property address, and is a misrepresentation of a real brick and mortar property that exists in reality. To resolve this misrepresentation, we issue a certificate of allodial title to the naturally occurring brick and mortar property. The interface between the two titles, therefore, is the UCC. The same principle applies to the legal registration of real automobiles. For instance, in the UK, a V5 document is evidence of a legal title claim of a fictional legal entity seen as the all caps vehicle description, and is a misrepresentation of a real travelling conveyance machinery that exists in reality. To resolve this misrepresentation, we issue a certificate of allodial title to the real travelling conveyance machinery. The interface, as standard between the two titles, therefore, is the UCC. With regards to the real human being, sovereignty certification is paramount to birth certification, because birth certification is evidence of legal title to the legal entity, the all caps name, which is fictional, whereas sovereignty certification is evidence of title to the real living flesh and blood being, which is real. One is an admiralty law title ownership claim by the state, and the other is a reclaiming of the ordained sovereignty and birthright of the real flesh and blood body by the real human being. Therefore, the jurisdictional laws that apply to the legal entity all caps name are different to the jurisdictional laws that apply to the certified sovereign. Check? So, these distinctions must be made clear in the minds of certified sovereigns, yet in the context of working with and not against. Consider the playing field of this diagram, which is likened onto a tennis court. Either side of the court represents two different jurisdictional courts of law. One is admiralty law and the other is the common law. And, as always, the interfacing and interacting body of law between them is the Uniform Commercial Code. Check? Thank you for your attention.